The little girl stood trembling in the lobby, clutching a worn red scarf to her chest as Christmas music echoed softly through the towering glass building. Her eyes were filled with fear far too heavy for a child her age. Across the polished floor, executives hurried past carrying expensive gifts and coffee cups, unaware that a single whispered sentence was about to change several lives forever. Before we begin this emotional story, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Corner if you believe kindness, compassion, and second chances can change someone's life. Your support helps bring more heartwarming stories to people around the world. 8-year-old Marisol Hart had never been inside a building this large before. The headquarters of one of the city's most successful companies looked more like a palace than an office. Crystal lights sparkled overhead. Giant Christmas trees decorated every corner. Employees laughed and exchanged holiday greetings. Everything seemed bright and joyful, yet Marisol felt none of that joy. She had come for only one reason. To save her mother, Celeste Hart, worked on the cleaning staff. Every night after the employees left, Celeste quietly cleaned offices, hallways, conference rooms, and restrooms. Most people never noticed her. She was simply part of the background, but to Marisol, her mother was a hero. For years, Celeste had worked 2 jobs while raising her daughter alone. She skipped meals so Marisol could eat. She wore old shoes so her daughter could have new ones for school. Every sacrifice was made with love. Then everything began falling apart. 3 months earlier, Celeste had suffered a serious illness. The medications were expensive. Medical bills piled up faster than she could pay them. She missed several shifts while recovering. Her landlord threatened eviction. Their electricity was cut off twice. Still, she never complained. Every morning she smiled for Marisol. Every night she cried after her daughter fell asleep. A week before Christmas, Celeste received devastating news: budget cuts, staff reductions. Her supervisor informed her that her position might be eliminated before the new year. The moment Celeste heard those words, something inside her broke. Marisol noticed it immediately. Her mother still smiled, but the smile no longer reached her eyes. The little girl overheard late-night phone calls with creditors. She heard her mother praying quietly in the kitchen. She saw unopened bills stacked beside the refrigerator. Most children would have felt helpless. Marisol decided to do something. She secretly learned that the company's CEO would be attending the annual Christmas celebration at headquarters. People called him Victor Langston. Employees described him as brilliant but distant. Powerful but difficult to approach. Newspapers called him one of the wealthiest business leaders in the region. To Marisol, he was simply the man who might save her mother. So on the morning of the Christmas event, she put on her cleanest sweater, wrapped her favorite scarf around her neck, and took a bus across town. The trip took nearly 2 hours. When she finally arrived, nervousness nearly convinced her to turn back. But then she remembered her mother's tired eyes, and she walked through the doors. Meanwhile, Victor Langston stood in the executive conference room reviewing quarterly reports. Despite the festive decorations surrounding him, he felt strangely empty. Christmas had become another business obligation, another event, another speech, another year. 3 years earlier, he had lost his wife and young daughter in a tragic accident. Since then, holidays felt hollow. No amount of success could fill the silence waiting for him at home. His employees saw confidence, few saw loneliness. As Victor prepared to leave for the Christmas gathering, his assistant informed him that security had stopped a young girl in the lobby. Normally, such interruptions would be handled by staff, but something about the situation caught his attention. Minutes later, he stepped into the lobby. There she was. A small child standing alone beneath a massive Christmas tree. Marisol's hands shook as she looked up at the towering businessman. For a moment, she almost lost her courage. Then she remembered why she came. Tears filled her eyes. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, "Please don't fire Mommy." The entire lobby seemed to freeze. Victor stared at her, confused. Marisol quickly explained everything, not dramatically, not perfectly, just honestly. She told him about her mother's illness, about the bills, about the apartment, about the fear, about how her mother worked harder than anyone she knew. She explained that Christmas wasn't about presents this year. It was about survival. If her mother lost her job, they would lose everything. Victor listened silently. the words hit him harder than he expected. There was something painfully familiar about the little girl's eyes, the innocence, the hope, the desperate love for a parent. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about reports, profits, or company performance. That he was thinking about people, real people, people whose lives were affected by every decision made in his office. Marisol finished speaking and lowered her head. She expected rejection. Adults often ignored children, but when she finally looked up, she saw tears in Victor's eyes. The CEO suddenly remembered his own daughter, the daughter who used to hold his hand during Christmas shopping, the daughter whose laughter once filled his home, the daughter he would never see again. Something inside him shifted. That afternoon, instead of delivering the prepared corporate speech, Victor walked onto the stage during the company Christmas celebration carrying a folder. Hundreds of employees watched. Celeste stood near the back of the room, unaware that her daughter had visited headquarters earlier. Victor began speaking. That he talked about success, then he talked about purpose, then he talked about kindness. Finally, he shared a story. Without revealing names, he described a brave little girl who had traveled across the city because she loved her mother enough to fight for her. The room became silent. Many employees wiped away tears. Then Victor announced several unexpected changes. The company would cancel the planned layoffs. A new employee assistance program would be created for workers facing medical hardships. Additional paid sick leave would be introduced. Emergency family support funds would become available immediately. The audience erupted into applause, but Victor wasn't finished. He asked Celeste Hart to come forward. Confused and nervous, she slowly walked toward the stage. When she arrived, Victor handed her an envelope. Inside was something she never imagined. Her job was secure, her medical expenses would be fully covered through a special employee support initiative, her overdue rent had been paid anonymously, and she was being promoted to oversee the company's new employee wellness program. Because of her dedication and resilience, Celeste burst into tears. The room stood and applauded. Then Victor revealed who inspired the changes. Everyone turned toward the audience. There sat Marisol, the little girl who had changed everything. Employees rose from their seats, some cried openly, others cheered. Many had never witnessed something so genuine. For the first time in years, Victor felt warmth returning to his heart. Christmas no longer felt empty. Weeks passed, then months. The changes Victor implemented transformed company culture. Employee morale improved dramatically. Productivity increased. More importantly, people felt valued. But the biggest transformation happened outside the office. Victor remained in contact with Celeste and Marisol. What began as gratitude slowly became friendship. The lonely CEO who had spent years avoiding emotional connections found himself attending school plays, birthday celebrations, and weekend lunches. Marisol brought laughter back into his life. Celeste reminded him that strength often exists quietly behind the scenes, and together, they helped each other. Heel Point. One snowy December evening exactly 1 year later, Victor stood beside Marisol at a community Christmas event sponsored by the company. Thousands of families attended, children played, parents smiled, volunteers distributed gifts and meals. As lights illuminated the night sky, Marisol looked up at Victor and squeezed his hand. The gesture was simple, yet it carried enormous meaning. A year earlier, she had entered his building terrified. Now she stood beside him as family, not by blood, but by choice. And sometimes those bonds are even stronger. Before the story ends, if this journey touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Lifeline Corner. Stories like this remind us that a single act of courage can create ripples of kindness that travel farther than we ever imagine. Special request: comment, kindness changes lives. If you believe one compassionate moment can transform someone's future forever. As Christmas lights shimmered across the city, Victor realized something priceless. Wealth had never been his greatest gift. Power had never been his greatest achievement. The greatest gift had arrived in the form of a frightened little girl with a trembling voice and a heart full of love. Marisol had come to save her mother, but in doing so, she had also saved a lonely man from years of grief. And that is the beautiful thing about kindness. Sometimes the people we help end up helping us even more. On that Christmas night, surrounded by laughter, hope, and second chances, 3 lives stood forever changed because one brave little girl found the courage to whisper 5 simple words: "Please don't fire Mommy." And from that moment forward, Christmas was never the same again.